So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We appreciate you on our channel, your viewership. I just want to give a little gratitude because I don't think we do that enough. We're kind of robotic sometimes in our intros. But yeah, today we're discussing what it's like, or some of the signatures of this aspect natally. And I've been in close contact recently. I've stayed actually in the homes of 2 people recently with this aspect. I have this natally myself, I will say, but it's wide, and I also have Moon Saturn, so that mitigates it. So with all these aspect videos, you really want to look at the whole chart. I'll just reiterate that, but we're breaking it down because there is important signatures within each of these aspects, especially with a personal planet like the moon touching one of the transpersonals. So something to note with this aspect is Neptune wants to dissolve boundaries. It, to me, is in its high form transcending, right? Transcendentalism, you could say, and in its low form, escapism. So it's those are two kind of sides of the same thing with the Neptune energy. And because it wants to kind of dissolve boundaries, when it's contacting someone's moon, there can be a very difficult time distinguishing between one's own emotions and the emotions of people in their field, people around them. And so discernment is a really big thing, and boundaries is a really big thing I point out when people have this aspect in a reading, because it's quite often that you'll see people who have a very sensitized, heightened psychic ability. They're very empathic. They're very open. It's an open moon. But what can happen then is anyone comes through the floodgates, right? They're just open to whoever. Literally, the 2 people who I was staying with, both their homes are literally, because moon does represent our actual home, both their homes are kind of like couch surfing places where people can come and go. Transient, they're open to visitors, and they see the beauty and love in everyone, which is awesome, and it's very endearing. But then they can get themselves in this kind of victim role too, where they're taking a lot on. It's like, that's not yours. You don't need to take that on. And so that's the other side of it. That's maybe the shadow side of the moon Neptune, is wanting to merge, wanting to feel connected. And then we can also see with this aspect, applying that into things like substances, entheogens, wanting to be in that other frame, let's say, and not be so grounded in the here and now. Like I had said earlier, the escapism. And so I think positive ways that people with Moon Neptune can channel it is obviously through the arts, through music, through practices like creative visualization, prayer, meditation. I feel like those are the healthy ways I've seen people with this aspect really channel these energies together. But yeah, that's kind of my little overview. Do you have anything you want to add?
I want to add a couple of things. Molly mentioned the empathic aspect. So because of that, I mean, an empath usually means that you're going to be fraught with issues like projection and mirroring. You know what I mean? Like interpreting other people's, or taking other people's feelings personally. That would be mirroring. Projecting, there's different forms of projection. I think there's 4 specific psychological types of projection. Could be any one of those, all of them, all of the above. I think the biggest marker of warning for this aspect is to be very careful with sensationalism at any of any extreme, being overexcited, right? Over amplifying one's like image of what is and what really is and what things are not. This and of course, and we'll probably take this to the next step. And this kind of second take on it is the moon is also one's mother. So it's not just the home, but it's your mom, your mother. And so this is a mother who's maybe had very little boundaries, very little clear sense of self. And there could be a lot of challenge in extricating what is you in contradiction to the mother. In other words, like this is an enmeshment signature, if we were to look at this psychologically.
Ooh, I would add to that there could be a codependency with the signature too. Because something I've witnessed
Same thing.
with people who maybe are still on the journey of mastering this aspect, let's say, they can have a lot of like martyring kind of tendencies to be like, oh, I'm always the victim of abuse. I'm always the victim of others. But honestly, I like to say, when you're a victim, though, that's almost another expression of narcissism itself, because yeah, you're a victim. I don't know how to describe it. Like, people like to polarize the empath narc, and I think we're all both. And it's like either one is the extreme of two poles, but they're kind of the same thing.
Exactly. Well said.
Like, they need to be needed can be really big with this aspect.
And you know, Neptune in itself is a marker for the myth of Narcissus, because Neptune embodies both poles. There's other asteroids that don't, but Neptune embodies both extremes of the reflection in the water, right? The illusion of a mirrored reflection being something that it may not be, and also the penetration through that illusion, because water is also a portal to somewhere else. It's also, I mean, it's I personally think it's the main portal of this realm. It's how the spirit gets out of here, whether it's through, you know, the image of like sci-fi shows like Stargate, or the idea of like us having a dome and waters above us and below. But
and we come in through the amniotic fluid.
Exactly. There you go. Right. And all portals are covered with water, you know. And the only thing else to add to that is when you see Neptune in the chart, the signature usually it represents an archetype that is either, that could be alcoholic, could be psychic, could be an artist, could be and could be a narcissist, because those are all the same thing, different manifestation.
Or like D, all of the above.
Right.
Like, as I was saying, like, it's not always so clear sometimes when the person's like the victim or the almost just needing
victimizer. You know, it's a dance between the victim and the victimizer. Also consider this would be the same or very similar to someone with Moon in the 12th house. And we just did the Grant Louis video, and he had Moon in the 12th, which is, you know, a marker for the mother being confined in the 12th house, or living in that 12th house kind of water world, you know.
So the well-known spiritualist and psychic Edgar Cayce has this in his chart, to give an example of someone very involved with the being a conduit, being a conductor of transpersonal ideas and information. And also his mother, actually, I read his biography a little bit. His mother was extremely religious. So that could be another manifestation, you know, kind of within the spiritual realm. But sometimes it looks like, you know, growing up with like a lot of
or something.
Religion. What?
Oh, I just said it sounded like you were going to say religious discipline or something.
Yeah. Like, in a way, like having some structure, I think, is very balancing to this aspect. So you're having some practice, if you will, that a person can connect to, is a way to maybe stay grounded in this aspect, because the tendency to want to draw in or go towards experiences that further dissipate boundaries, but it's almost like people with this don't need more of that. You know what I mean? Like, they don't, but they're attracted to it for sure.
There are solutions, and we'll get to that, you know, for having this aspect and to help kind of mitigate the negative effects of this.
I don't like solutions because it implies it's like inherently a problematic aspect.
What did you say last time that we were to use instead of solutions?
I would say ways to empower.
Empowerment ideals?
Yeah.
All right, let me know.
But I just don't like calling things solutions for astrological aspects, because it's like, There's good and bad to every aspect.
I like the idea of solutions, but that's fine. We call it empowerment.
It's just a difference in perspective. So some well-known people also who have this would be like a lot of musicians. Off the top of my head, I did a whole search. Let me just rattle off. Do you remember, Mario? I sent you a text of a bunch of people with this.
You do? I could check.
Yeah, maybe read it off. And also I will add, since the moon is our stomach, sensitivities, environmental sensitivities, very important who you surround yourself with. Very important, what you're putting into your body. But I've observed from a more medical astrology perspective with people who have the trine, actually, between Moon and Neptune, tend to have more allergies, sensitivities, intolerances than the conjunction.
I have the trine.
Yeah, I would say the people with the trine actually are more intolerant and sensitive in their stomachs than the conjunction.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I think understanding that one with this aspect can access source consciousness energy without maybe those outer stimulations, or you use the word sensationalism, and I kind of take that even to mean like seeking, it kind of goes along with addiction, but just seeking that kind of like high all the time, because Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. Neptune is like the saccharine, sugar, sweet, like supercharged sweet. And yeah, it kind of goes with the evading. Like I remember reading about people who crave sugar. It's almost like there's a lack of sweetness in their life, and so they're wanting to bring in sweetness, but it is a form of escape. It's a form of like not looking at maybe the grittier or more boring or more mundane things of life, always needing to be hypercharged in a sense.
Yeah, well said. A couple of things there, well said. And then some of the people you mentioned, let's see if I have that here since you didn't find it. You mentioned Amy Winehouse, Marvin Gaye, Justin Timberlake, and Billy Joel. You said all have this aspect.
Amy Winehouse, of course, had an amazing musical career, but also succumbed to addiction, heroin addiction. Well, everything. I think she was addicted to a lot of things, but music is a beautiful way to channel it. It almost allows you to feel all the feelings and put it into some structure, right?
Yeah, it's great because they want to be in that dream world. So creating art, being, living in that little world or creating in that world is good for them because they enjoy that.
The glass artist Chihuly, he has this as well. The guy who makes the really ornate blown glass exhibits.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he had this aspect. Evangeline Adams had the trine, the moon trine Neptune, and you have the trine, which we could save for another video. But on a health and healing side of things, yeah, it's like, even though the draw to these other experiences might be strong, like resisting that because you're already really sensitive. And perhaps something to explore is maybe the sensitivity is what's drawing people to, maybe they're trying to escape their sensitivity, if that makes sense. Like sometimes I think people reach for substances or experiences because they can't just sit with what they're feeling, right? And this, because the line or boundary between yourself and others is already a little nebulous, it can be good to just sit in silence or spend some time in your own aura, take a bath at the end of the day, and just cut off all the maybe the circuit inputs and just sit with that, you know, and see what comes up, because there's probably profound insight that could be gleaned, and people like Edgar Casey were definitely tapping into that, his own stream of consciousness, his own channel, his own conduit of awareness.
There's a quote by Barbara Marcianic that really applies here, I think. And I'll mention this in the context. I'm going to go ahead now and go into the empowerment ideas for this. Well, you were already touching on it. I'm going to just see if I can find the quote. I may not be able to, but it was something, well, I'll just go written and I'll come to that. What it is that people with this sign, with this aspect, should learn how to be exact and how they express themselves, because they can go overboard, right? Into the illusions without really knowing it. They can
I like overboard, literally, pun intended, because it's Neptune.
right into the water. Right. Exactly. And then what else in relation to that? Reserve, like learning to be very reserved with their expression, because otherwise they can lose their own abilities and concentration, which are already limited, right? So being precise with how they express themselves, reserved, and also there's a dynamic here, and you mentioned this, you kind of brought this up, where this is an aura that absorbs its surroundings. So you're going to want to find the place in the chart where your sun is and follow your sun, as opposed to your moon. In other words, like your sun should be something that is magnetizing your power, so that your frequency is really strong in any environment you're in, so that you're not absorbing. You're the one who's the sun, who's transmitting the neutrinos of the environment. Does that make sense, Molly?
Yeah, I like that.
Because, and that was the Marcianic quote, it was something to that degree. Like, we don't want to be victims of our environment, just absorbing whatever's there. We want to be we want to be the sun in whatever environment we're in. We want to be shining in who we are and what we're there expressing.
Right. Like, you can lose yourself otherwise, like with this aspect, you really can. You can lose your sense of self, which is, again, in certain contexts, that's appropriate, right? In a spiritual kind of setting or with certain intentions. But in an everyday thing, that can be extremely destabilizing, and mitigating chart aspects can kind of keep this in check too. But yeah, there's a lot of compassion with this aspect, though. There's a lot of compassion too, because I do admire people I've known who have this very tight, and maybe not other mitigating things, Aquarian, already very open. They really do see the beauty in everyone. There's a lack of judgment, which can be really beautiful.
Yeah, I like that. I think Moon in the 12th house kind of has that kind of edge to it. I want to add that likely if you were born in the 70s, those will be Moon and Sag. People, if you were born in the 80s, it'll be Moon and Scorpio. If you were born in the 90s, it'll be
Moon in Capricorn.
Moon in Capricorn, right? And then Moon in Aquarius in the last.
But you still should check, because it's like, for instance, I'm Moon in Capricorn, but I have this aspect wider than some would even consider. What orb are you using? So I will say, it's not just if you're a Capricorn moon, you don't necessarily have it. If you're a really early degree Capricorn moon, you wouldn't have it touching in a conjunction.
Yeah, and right now Neptune's in Pisces. It's going to go out of Pisces in the next 5 years or so, next couple of years, but it's in Pisces, the latter degrees of Pisces. So if you're a Virgo, you're definitely feeling it, but again, that's a different aspect. Anything else, Ma? I think that's all I got on this.
No, I think we chatted long enough. If you guys have aspects you would like us to touch on, feel free to comment below these videos.